You just want. I don't want to do that, bro. I don't want to do
No,
that.
I'm just
Y'all
saying. I'm
finish
just
having
saying.
y'all
open up
conversation.
that
I don't want to.
fucking
I don't have the
can.
energy for that. I don't have the energy for that. Y'all
Where
You
just
open
listening
where
to
up the
where
rebuttal.
is
You're
this?
can.
not
No,
listening.
no, but
Y'all not.
wait,
Y'all
wait,
don't be
wait, wait.
listening. You listening
No,
to
number
No,
five,
rebuttal.
number
I'm
five,
not.
number
I'm
five, number five,
listening, but you open up
number
the
five. Let me
can.
ask a question. Number five, can I ask a question?
Talking about
Where are
open
you
up a
getting this
can.
information from that there's a Jesus for every race? Like, where is that coming from? What
No,
book
he didn't
even
say that.
ever said that?
He said
Bro,
that
you
basically
No,
the
he
God
didn't
that
say
you
that.
believe in for by your culture looks like you. So when you have it, it's supposed to look like you. But what he got wrong was that basically Christianity is still depicted with the highest people that worship it in the Catholic Church. They go into a black Madonna. They still worship it as black. That's not their color. That's not who they
bro,
are.
but that's
Okay,
But
why
they
they.
still
You're
give
right.
credit
But
to
so
them.
you're
But they
right. You're
show
I
right.
have to
everybody else,
jump
oh, white
in.
Jesus.
But all of that.
It's in the
But
verse.
listen, all of that's private though. That's tucked away somewhere, right?
Right.
So in the
That's tucked
Abrahamic
away.
faith, there is no.
In the public, what are they giving, bro?
A white Jesus.
Okay, bro. So use your intelligence, please, brother. Listen when I'm
Right.
talking. Listen. Don't just hear me. Listen, bro. Thank you.
Okay,
I'm done.
And in
that's
No,
Spain,
if
they
you
speculation.
have a
said you
black
listen,
Jesus
if
as
you want
well.
him to
How
In
listen,
exactly?
Spain, they
don't
use a black
stop.
Jesus. In other places, they use a black Jesus in these foreign countries that we don't know nothing about. It seems that in the European countries, they advertise a lot of the white Jesus. But when
But
you
guess
go to
what?
these other countries,
Guess
other
what?
European countries,
Like
they don't.
Spider said, guess what? Like Spider said, guess what? You could choose your path. So if you want to go there, go try to connect with somebody else's deity or God, good luck with that. Let's see how powerful he is with you. If he's more powerful with you than he is with the people that he look like, or he
Well,
or
let's
she,
just take
that
this.
deity. Good
Let's
luck
take
with
this
that
for
path.
consideration, right? Let's
But
take
doesn't
this for
that
consideration.
presuppose that these deities look like something? Like,
This is
where
just
are we
this
getting
is a
that notion that?
That what I'm saying. What
no, because a lot of the depictions say that God had a body. They
So
all
some
say
of
he
the
has a
depictions
body.
say that. Some of the depictions say
some
that.
exactly some that's
Some,
very
but
few.
let's just say more than others, right? A lot of them are saying that people have met God, couldn't see in the Christian religion. They seen God, couldn't see his face, saw his body. They were saying that this guy had a body. So like now we know that it's an image there. There is something to look at, and that's what messed it up. But what number five is saying that says that you need somebody to look like you to have a God. Period. And where did God come from? Did a God come from a person part of your tribe that did magnificent things that you put legend and infamy that later on became a God? Or is it that they just made this up for some type of control and making some type of legends out of their own cultural history? Because half the men that are there, they've been lived in infamy from their war commemorations, the things they did in war, the things that the accomplishments. So they became a deity. This is in the Greek, though, in the Greek, right? But let's go to Mohammed.
Not just in Greek.
Mohammed was a war leader too. He put God in high acclaim to the point that they put him in the book of the Quran. So now he's in the God-like sense.
Whoa, whoa,
Am
whoa,
I
whoa,
am I
whoa,
correct?
whoa.
It's funny.
Am I wrong?
So
Nah,
yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
So let
that's a
let
little
me
that's
ask
a
you.
Kind
little
of wrong.
Let's
good.
have a conversation for a moment. Let's talk. Let's you and I talk for one moment, so you can give some clarity about the statement you just made. You said that Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was a war leader, a combatant commander, and he was, and that is the reason that he was placed in the Quran, right? Did you not hear when Heartless Buddha was saying that the Quran is actually a almost a historical rendition of the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's life. Everything in the Quran actually has to do with an event that took place during his lifetime. Every revelation has to do with something that happened during the lifetime of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So he wasn't placed in the Quran because he was some kind of combatant commander who took over some kind of country and then somebody wrote a
He's the
Quran
one
about him.
that the
That's not
Quran
what
was
happened.
revealed to.
Why do
Let
y'all
him
Right.
venerate
He's
him
the one
so
to
let him
whom the
much? Like,
Quran
finish.
was
why every
Let
revealed.
him
time you say
finish.
his name, like, I
Let
listen,
him
I respect the
finish.
prophet too.
Let him
I respect the
finish.
prophet too. But why do y'all say that after every
Let him
time? Like, we respect
finish.
Jesus
Okay,
so
so
much.
so so
But why
so
Let
we
him
got to
let
say,
let
finish.
let,
like,
let
peace be upon him
I
every
will answer
time?
that if you I'll answer that for you. I'll answer that for you. So
Why is it a
there is a
problem?
verse in
Peace be
there's a
upon him?
verse in the Quran that says that whenever you mention Muhammad, when you mention his name, to send salutations upon him. So the Muslims say Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam after we say his name. We don't expect other people, we don't ask other people to say it. We're not requiring any, but we do say it, and we will say it. We will send salutations upon our prophet when the same when we say Allah Ta'ala or Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, or Allah Azza wa Jal. We give exaltation and praise to um, uh, Allah, and we will also send salutations. It says peace and
And you see,
Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam
and,
means peace and blessings be upon him. So we're saying it's a prayer to God. Whenever we say the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, maybe we say peace and blessings be upon him, asking Allah to give peace and blessings upon
and
Muhammad sallallahu
wasn't
alaihi wasallam.
didn't that start off as a family thing with Muhammad? Wasn't that like the
No,
immediate ones around him, and then it spread from there? And
no.
this is why they was
Oh,
honoring him like that.
no,
No.
no, no,
No.
no.
No,
It's a verse. It's a verse in the Quran that required the Muslims
they
to
just
say
started
it.
off like talking to the whole world, like, "Hey, world, this is
It
how y'all
started
talk
off
about
with
your
the
prophet.
early Muslim.
This is
It
how you
started
talk
off
No,
with
about
the
no,
your
early
Wait,
prophet."
listen
Muslims.
to
Those were
Hold
the
him
on,
first
for a
ones
oh,
to
hold
no,
talk.
no,
on,
second.
no,
listen,
no,
Listen
listen, listen.
to him.
no.
Listen,
You're talking about
Muhammad
his
came for a
message.
prophet for the whole world just off the top. It was just known
Wait,
that he
just
was
listen to
came
him
to
No,
the
no,
for
no,
a
world,
no,
or
second,
no.
please. Can you
was he
just
living
listen
a
to
life
him?
with his family and his friends, and people
Can
around him
you
was
listen to him for
fighting
a
for him and with
second?
him like that?
Okay.
What's
So
up with
I
this
understand what you're
lady?
talking about. So yeah, you're talking about when he came with his message, right? Not the saying Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. You're talking about when he came with his message, to whom he first sent the message. He came with the message. He first came with the message to the Quraysh. That was the first people he brought the message to. Was the people of his tribe. That was
And
the
then
first people that he
and
brought
then
the message to.
were those the first people to be saying um singing salutation to their prophet? Was those the first people?
There was singing salutations to him.
Those people
We say,
called him Rasulullah. They called him the
yeah,
messenger of Allah. Most of those
yeah. They say,
people,
"Oh, messenger of Allah."
even though they
I'm
did send salutations of him, onto him, it was more so like they called him messenger of Allah. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
that's even a title of veneration. You know what I mean?
yeah. Because if
yeah,
you read in
Rasul.
books of
I
Hadith,
think the title Rasulullah really means Godhead. But okay, I know a lot of y'all not gonna agree with that, but okay. But
yeah.
Your
nevertheless,
Arabic
you
is
say
off.
that
Your
Well,
Arabic is
you
very
know,
off.
you
If that's
you
what
know
you
it doesn't
think.
mean that in Arabic. You know that, right? You know enough to know that, right?
you
Oh,
say
it
mean
doesn't say that
messenger,
there?
but there's another word for messenger, right?
What is?
And that be
Nabi is a
Nabi is
prophet.
prophet.
Prophets and messengers are
Nabi mean
different.
prophet, but don't you say a prophet mean messenger too?
No,
Don't y'all
the,
say that?
prophets and messengers are different.
there are
There's a
Oh yeah,
difference
there's a
between a prophet and a
distinction
messenger.
one
between
of them got the
Rasul.
message, and the other one do just what? Something.
There's a distinction between Rasul and Nabi. A Nabi is somebody who comes as a prophet, but he's not changing any jurisdiction. You know what I'm
Oh
saying?
yeah,
That's like
right.
the people who came after Moses. You know what I mean? They
Uh
weren't
huh.
changing the laws of Moses. They were still prophets. Then a
Right.
Rasul, he comes with a different legislation. Like we would consider Noah as a
Right.
Rasul or
He's a
Jesus as a
godhead.
Rasul. No,
Yeah,
it's
he's a
not a
godhead.
godhead.
He got the head. He got the head to change some stuff. Only the head can change stuff like that. He's a part of the godhead.
Nah,
Listen,
no one ever
listen,
thinks
listen,
that Noah was a god. No one ever looked at
listen, listen,
Noah as
listen,
a
listen,
god,
listen. Ras means head.
bro. You're taking English etymology and putting it side by side to Arabic like that is the
It
Right.
same
is
thing. That's
no, no.
not the
That's
same
not
thing,
English.
bro.
That's not English. That's not English. I just told you. I said Ras, Ras,
Wait,
Rasul,
can you let him talk for a second?
Rasulallah, the head of God.
Just let him talk, please.
Well, I might be wrong. I know y'all ain't gonna agree. Y'all don't see things like that.
No, it's not that.
Okay.
We just want to hear both sides.
Huh? Oh, yeah, at work.
Yeah. So scrap that one.
He talking in the phone at work. Good, he can keep on daggone making noise. It's like you just make the conversation way more cumbersome, more cluttering than it gotta be. Like,
Yeah, right.
Can you just let
And
him
I do,
talk?
I do, I do apologize, but in fact, I am at work, so I apologize for that. So yeah,
I'm gonna try to be quiet again for another hour.
so it was He was correct
All right,
in
hold
saying
up.
that,
What you guys said?
he was correct in saying that there's a difference between a messenger and a prophet, and Rasul and Ras are different words. They come from different roots. From Rasul comes from the root of
Different
Arsala.
root
Arsala
word.
means like he sent, and Rasul is the one who was sent. So the Rasul is the one who is sent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with a message and new legislation. And the Nabi is a prophet who is going to confirm what has already been sent by either a previous prophet or a previous messenger. But he will not come with a new revelation or a new legislation. That is the distinction that we make in Islam with respect to a prophet and a messenger, or a Rasul and a Nabi. That is the distinction
So
that we make in Islam.
Cut out.
so I'm wrong. Huh? So
But yeah,
Oh,
Ras means one who
what
sent. It
does
don't
that
mean
mean?
that it don't got nothing to do with the head. Know what
So
you're telling me?
I
but
mean,
there's a lot
we
of
Ras
was
things.
literally
kicking some
means
There's
shit
a
head.
though.
the
Ras,
thing
Hmm?
is number five. There's a lot of things in that prayer that is mistranslated, even when you go into English. But the thing is
Hey,
too,
no, hey,
like
bro.
even with that
He
whole
might be
prayer,
that's for
having a
sure.
mistranslated version. He
There,
might
yeah.
be
But
trying to force
I'll tell
down
me
my
that the
throat
first one
a
when you look at
mistranslated version.
this
While I'm
this
telling
is
him
why let
what's
him know
not
all
why
that
so
shit.
Okay.
common,
You gotta make sure
what
you
I'm
get
telling
this.
him might not
Right.
be so common, but
You
it might
don't
be
want
right.
somebody to talk over you. So
Yeah.
let
Let's
him
go with number
talk.
7. Why number 7? Oh, man, God. All right, I realize what's going on. I'm gonna let him talk. You annoyed with my voice, so
Please,
I'm
you
gonna
can talk
hold it back.
after.
I ain't trying to distract you. Go ahead.
Sir.
doesn't that prayer say something about going back into the womb of Allah after that's all over with? Isn't there a word that says womb? And then there was a big fuss about that when people were saying, no, it's not the womb of Allah because if it was the
Rahman,
womb going
Okay, yeah. Nah,
Rahman,
that's the same thing
Rahman.
that's the same thing he was doing last time. So he was saying Rahma and Rahman are the same thing, where I think it was Most Crazy was explaining it to him like Rahma comes from a root word that comes from the meaning of it is like a womb where things are created, you know what I'm saying?
right.
And Allah uses this as one of his attributes, but it's
Oh,
not
Allah,
saying
But
it.
but can
God's a
you
woman then.
just
Okay,
respect
well, we
him?
can agree
Here
to
she
that.
go. There she
He
I
go.
has to
There
agree.
she
let him
go.
talk.
There she go
And
already. There she
if
go.
he's
Why you
wrong, then
cutting that?
just correct
Why you
him
cutting number
But
after.
now
8
this
off?
makes
Number
Allah.
8 was just explaining something. Why are you
Just
cutting him
correct
off?
him after.
Goody, let the men
No,
let the men
he's not
converse, Goody. Let the men talk.
he
You're
doesn't
not gonna talk over
require
the men.
correction.
What the
I
hell?
don't like this shit.
I think
Go
she's
ahead, number
annoyed
eight.
with the men right now.
Go ahead,
She
number
don't
eight.
care about men
But
no
yeah,
more.
there's a word that it it's an attribute of God, but it also has like the root word is also close to the word that they use for the womb of a woman, you know what I'm saying? And
Right.
so some
What is the
people
word?
miss I want to
The
say
word mean
Rahma and
listen, it
Raham.
mean
Those are the two
bro,
words, I think.
bro, it just mean mercy, most merciful. That's where the mercy started in the womb when your mother did not abort your ass. That's the mercy. That's why mercy and grace, grace and mercy. You ain't never met no man named Grace. Only a woman named Grace. So Abdur Rahman, Abdur Rahim is grace and mercy. It's dealing with feminine attributes. It's the feminine part of Allah that
Thank
y'all
you,
don't
brother.
like to acknowledge.
Thank
My
you, brother.
goodness gracious.
I'm glad. But see,
That's
nobody.
why
But
listen, you
this
got
is the
listen,
little
this is why I'm
things
here
that
to remind you people.
in this
Listen, I'm here
division.
to
No,
remind
no,
you
no,
people who
no.
like to divide and cause religious wars and religious divisions
But
because
that's
y'all don't
exactly
have
what you're
little
doing.
simple
That's
because
what you're
y'all don't
doing
have
because your
simple
understanding
no
your
because y'all don't
understanding is
have
minimal,
simple
bro.
understandings like these. It's why y'all have divisions
No,
and
that's
foolish
the problem.
arguments.
Your understanding is minimal. So you're placing that under
Oh
things that
my
take a lot of
God.
mind, that take a lot of understanding. One, okay, for example, there are certain names that are attributed to Allah that are shared with mankind. You don't know this, but there are also names that are only attributed to Allah that He only claims as Himself, like Rahman, for example. those are things that he shares. That is one thing that he shares with all of mankind, because everybody has mercy. You know what I'm saying? But there are also names that, for example, hold on, let me see.
Can't teach these
Rahim.
guys. Can't
No,
teach
no,
these
no. I'm sorry.
guys
You
nothing.
you 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 got it backwards. Rahman is something that is exclusive to Allah. The the Rahman
Can't
of Allah
teach him
Subhanahu wa
nothing.
Taala
See, he's
is exclusive.
romanticized. He's what Buddha was telling
Rahim,
you about. Buddha
Rahim
had to
is
pull
what
himself
is
away
shared
from the
with humanity.
romanticism. You
Mhm.
see, he's so
So this is why we
romanticized
say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
with this male Allah figure that he cannot see what we're saying.
So
Okay,
We don't believe
Allah is
Allah
a
is a
woman
male.
then.
We believe that, no, we don't believe he's a woman either. We believe he
Why you saying?
transcends
Why you
gender.
saying
It's
he?
not
Why you
like
don't
something
say
that,
it? Why you don't say it? Why you say he? Why you don't say it?
because
Why you say he?
because the male has the dominance in
Ah,
our world.
bullshit.
It's not the
but
Bullshit.
we don't have to
Bullshit.
defend the speech of
That's
Allah.
conception.
Bullshit.
Why
Bro,
would the Muslim
you the
defend the
one
What I'm
speech
that
of
saying.
Allah?
talks about the etymology of words all the time. You should know that
And that's
there are
bullshit.
certain words that are masculine and feminine, and either way you go, the
Exactly.
masculine
So
is
why
always
you
going to
calling him a
outwork.
he then? Why
So
you
wait a
using the
minute.
That's
masculine term?
What is the masculine word for womb in that language? Is
Hey,
there
listen, I'm
there
gonna
in
give
there
you
word?
the
isn't.
feminine.
That
Hey, listen,
attribute
I'm
is
gonna give
shared
you
with
the feminine
women. It's
term.
not shared
I'm
with
gonna give you
men.
the
Wait,
feminine
why
term
would
for
there
Allah.
be
Oh,
a
Hey, I'm gonna give you the feminine
masculine?
term. I'm gonna give you the feminine
Wait,
term for
why
Allah
would
right
there
now.
be a masculine term for a womb?
Allah is the
well,
feminine
it
term
can
for
be, but
Allah.
there's not one in the Arabic
Hey,
language.
listen,
That's what
I'm
he's
glad you
saying.
say that, but I wasn't
Exactly.
even gonna say that. I wasn't gonna
Yeah,
say that,
Allah.
Redeemer.
No.
Oh,
Redeemer, I wasn't gonna say
There,
that.
But remember that
I'm
But
gonna
when we
I'm
say
say
glad
it.
you said
gender,
that. But
like I said, it's
when
go
not.
we
ahead and
say
build
gender
on
and we're
that, and I'll
talking
say what I'm
about
saying
You're
after
language,
you,
thinking about
Redeemer.
a man
it has
standing out
nothing
here
to do
and
with
passing out
with
attributes. It's not like
physiology.
that at all. I'm sorry.
Okay,
Gender
because
and
that's how
language
y'all
have
been taught.
when they're
That's how
talking.
y'all been taught, right?
So
That's how
brother,
y'all
in
been
number
taught.
8, number 3, what is Alat, Manet, and Al Uzza? Who are those people in the Quran? What are they? Those three
So
women? What
So
what are those three women in the Quran?
Manet and
I
Al-Uzza, these were actual people who lived.
people,
They
yeah.
died. They were righteous people. The people of their towns turned them into statues, or not, but made statues of them and started worshiping them. That's who they are. And those are the people whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells the believers not to emulate, to not emulate the people of these people of this tribe, or these tribes, because these tribes they were engaged in
They
idol
started
worship.
they
But
started
Allah
calling them
is
the
not a.
daughters. They started calling them the daughters of God, like the daughters of Allah. Whereas
All right.
all it was were they were righteous people, and the devil tricked them into thinking like, okay, let's start worshiping these people because they were so righteous. You know what
And
I'm
what does
saying?
that mean?
Hey, we should
Right.
start
But this is what
worshiping
I'm
your
saying.
dreads.
This is what I'm
I
saying.
heard there's
Even
power in your dreads. Them dreadlocks
yeah,
you
that's
got
true.
power in.
What does
Look,
that mean?
Right.
we gonna
So
all
so when
pray.
you
Everybody
speak
pray the
of
number 8
Allah,
dreads.
is
We
it
gonna
true
change the
that
subject.
Allah, the word Allah, does that mean moon god in another language, or is that
No,
was the moon
no.
god
So
called Allah
that's that Robert
before
Morey
before
nonsense. That
Islam?
that
Nah,
dude that dude
And
Robert
y'all
Morey
there's
wrote that
still
there are
talking about
verses in the
ridiculous book.
Quran that tell you don't worship the moon or the sun because Allah is the one that created both of them.
All right,
You
but
don't worship
all right,
those
so
things.
But the word
all right,
Allah
all
means
right. We
moon
glad. All
god
right, we
though.
glad. All right, listen, we
Where's
glad
that
you know
true?
that that's what the book say.
No,
Now, how do you really interpret what it say? That part do
Right.
you
Okay,
have?
well,
Because we can. Hey,
let me
listen,
tell you
we
this.
can explain to you why all of that is what it is. And I
Why?
know what these guys, they not gonna say what I'm gonna say. I
Well,
Okay,
already
say
know
it.
that.
I
yeah,
want to
Nobody
hear
gonna.
it.
I'm
I want to
absolutely
know.
not going to say
Nobody
what you're
on the
going to say.
panel gonna
So
say what I'm gonna say. I'm pretty
I
sure.
would tell you that this absurd notion that Allah comes from the moon god. Allah, if you see it written, it has al and it has illa in it, right? Al illa literally
Allah,
means the God, right? So the
be
word
God,
Allah
exactly.
literally means the God, like the one and only true God. That's what the word Allah literally means. Um,
So what is
so
what does Allah mean literally? What does Allah
No,
mean literally?
that's literally why it's so that's literally why it's so praised in the Arabic language, because there's no other word that comes closer, like God or goddesses or another form of. There's no other form of Allah. There's the Allah, and that's it. You know what I'm saying? Then you go
Bro,
to
y'all
another
need to
word.
be Hey, listen,
But he
y'all
was
need to
just
be
trying
quiet,
to
man. Y'all need
explain what it
you know what?
means. Let
You
him
know what? Since
explain it.
y'all not willing to learn, since y'all not willing to
No, I
learn,
mean he
since
literally
y'all
was
willing, the
trying to
only
say
thing
what
y'all
it
trying to
means.
do is teach right now. Y'all not really trying to learn so you can be advanced in your knowledge.
All right, so
You
what
busy
does it
trying to
Don't
teach.
mean?
ask me no
Y'all
question
busy trying
and
to
yeah,
teach
you're
what
gonna answer
y'all
it and
got.
tell me
So
I'm
that
not
mean
trying
What
to
I
does
need
learn.
to
it
be
mean?
That's
quiet.
absurd.
So that mean I need to be the hell quiet and stop trying to teach, share.
No.
Cause y'all
Say
ain't trying
what
to
it
really
Would you
is.
like to
learn.
switch
Say
it
what
up?
you
Y'all
think
trying
it
to
is.
teach.
Switch it your hand.
Y'all trying to
Say
tell us this stuff that we already got long time ago. This perspective
But
that we
this is the
got long
problem.
time
A
ago.
lot of people got a lot of information a long
It's
time
like,
ago
yo,
too.
it's like you know how no youngsters,
If it ain't
no
lining up.
underages allowed on this daggone
God,
panel.
Lord have
It should be the
mercy,
same thing when
bro.
it comes to this understanding about God and stuff. Like we're too
I
grown
understand that,
to
but
be
sometimes
arguing
other
back and
people
forth
have
about some
different
of this stuff about
perceptions,
God that we do.
and it's okay.
Don't you think so?
The thing
It's like
is,
we
the
It's
thing
talk
is
about
not
number
this stuff
five.
for
where
hours
Number
and
what
five.
hours and
I'm
hours, and
saying
then
is
we walk
it.
away at the same place where we started. Nobody advanced in knowledge, wisdom, and understanding pertaining to this
If
spiritual,
you
religious
are
stuff.
saying something and
Why is
somebody
that?
else is saying something, you're going
Like, are
back
we
and
doing?
forth, and you
You
can't
know
go
what?
ahead and get to a medium and actually say something. That's a
So
problem. There's no problem with actually talking.
so look, number five. So if you okay, we already heard what he said about Allah. But what I want to know that Allah and Al Uzza, what do they mean in English? I mean, or what is it? What is the breakdown and the etymology of the word, so we can get a better understanding, so we can compare it to Allah? Because if that was before Allah, if Al Uzza and all these things were before Allah, and then they came there, and it was what is Alat, Al Uzza, and Manet, and there was a lion there. It was a lion that protected them. This was some type of an empire or something that was probably spread all over the Middle
You,
East before
you,
Islam. Before Islam made their version of it, and then they came and tried to destroy them and forced them to believe the way they wanted
so
to believe. But if we
so
break down the etymology of those
Allah,
names,
the
we probably can
word
understand what
Allah
happened.
in the Arabic language precedes the birth of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the father of Muhammad sallallahu name is Abdullah, servant of Allah. That is his name. That's his father's name. So it had to proceed Muhammad sallallahu. So any notion
So,
that it was Muhammad who came up with the word Allah or that Allah came into existence after the advent of Islam is absurd. There were plenty of people whose names had Allah's name in it prior to the birth of the prophet for centuries.
So wait a minute. So okay, I hear what you're saying. So for centuries, Allah, you're saying the word Allah was already out there and everybody was using it before they gave it divinity?
it was always used
Yes.
as a term for
Why would somebody be
God.
named
You know what I'm
servant
saying?
of someone that wasn't divine?
No, wait,
Yeah,
wait,
why would,
wait. See, this is what I just said. I just said Allah, Al Uzza, and
The
Manet was
the
before Allah, before they coined it. This is the God, and this is the power that it holds.
No,
They were
that's
getting,
you're mistaken.
they
That
were
that's what you
using those words
suppose, okay?
differently before the Allah that you have as a structuralized religion that came and swept all the other ones, that took
No,
over
no,
all the other
no,
religions.
you're
that's your
mistaken because
supposition.
they
Okay, go ahead.
yeah that you're
That's,
the even in the even those people that you're talking about, they were called the daughters of Allah. You know what I'm saying? People started calling them the daughters of Allah later on, but even so,
That's
it
after the fact, right?
no,
That's
it
after
wasn't after the fact. It wasn't after
yeah.
the Quran came. This is later on after they passed away,
But Allah and Al Uzza is before the Quran, isn't it not?
before the revelation
That
of the Quran. Yes.
thank you. So you can't say that came from that. That Allah, Al Uzza, and Manet was before Allah. So they got that name
I,
from the three women. Is that
that's
right?
absurd. I mean, that's like that.
No,
I can't
the
even.
reason that well, I feel like the reason that they became righteous was because they were worshipers of God. You know what I'm saying? That's why people started looking to them like, these are people we should be looking at. Then when they died, they said these are people we should remember. So they made statues of these people. You know what I'm saying? This is not it's
Right.
not telling you that. I'm sorry.
But when they got the concept of God and said, hey, God's name is Allah. Well, before Allah was
You'll
even the God concept, where did they get that word from? What
you'll
were they
find no, you'll
referencing?
find that people have always had this propensity to to go to this idol worship or to go to another form of worship. Like they've always, for example, if the one God created Adam, right? And then in Cain and Abel's falling out, there was a split. Cain's
Long.
people went and started worshiping something totally different. You know what I'm saying? So there's always been this one focus and then a branch off. One focus and a branch off, always throughout history.
Okay, but let's take this for instance. So you said that, right? So let's just take this. Why is the flags that they all represent Islam is still Manat, Al Uzza, and Manet? Why is it still the same if they're the sun, the moon, and the star? That's where that came from.
One, hold on,
What
no,
flag
because
in Islam? What flag?
yeah,
The name this
Islam
flag
doesn't
that you're
have an
talking about.
actual flag. You thinking of this moon and
The
star
Turkish
that
flag.
the Turks, yeah,
What is it? What else? The
that the
Turks.
Ottomans brought into
Who else that
Islam.
has the sun, moon, and star? Everyone
The
else
Ottomans.
that the Union of Islam, the Islamic Union in the Middle East,
That
they all
that
rock
came
the
that
sun, moon,
came
and star.
after that came during the Ottoman Empire. That 1700.
Okay,
That
okay,
was like
okay.
that was way farther away from the prophet. The prophet never had symbols. He never had a flag. When he have a flag, it just said La ilaha illallah. It wasn't no
Yeah, it was a
it wasn't
purple
no
flag that had La
symbolism
ilaha
in the
illallah.
religion. There's no idolatry.
There's no idolatry,
You know what I'm
right?
saying? You
You're
would
saying that.
Oh,
Okay, there's no
it's,
idolatry. I give you that.
I
I
don't
give you
believe
that.
so.
So let's just say this, right? So you know the Kaaba. We're talking about the Kaaba. You know the Kaaba stone, Kaaba.
I do. I do.
yes, yeah. Yes,
You
we
know
know
about the
this too.
Kaaba stone, you know the big square. They do the circles around it to do their pilgrimage, and then they
Right.
go in and go into
Right.
the middle. All right. Before that,
Right.
before it was the Kaaba stone, it was another stone, and it was basically from the secret tribe that kept it secret. It was called uh uh the guardians of it was called, yeah, the guardians of Sheba. So the Sheba, that was the Sheba stone before that. Then they took that because that's pagan religion. They added that into Islam. They took Alat al Uzza, they added it to Islam. That's what built the foundation of Islam, was all the pagan belief system. So when you say that that was pagan, it seems that Islam is pagan because it came second. It wasn't first. All those things were first, and they were all representing
So,
some type of form of women worship that goes
so,
against
so,
Allah
so,
because it's a man.
Now
so,
So
so
let's just get
I,
the
into
I
Ka-
that.
will tell you this.
the Kaaba
I will tell
and the
you
Black
this.
Stone.
That, go ahead, brother.
Go ahead, number three.
Yeah,
I feel like
I'll tell you this, brother.
the
That
Black.
no, no, let me
Go ahead,
say
number two.
this to you. We have heard all of this argumentation before. You're not bringing to us information that we have not heard 1,000 different times, right?
Been
We are
answered.
well versed in. Hold on, we are well versed and understand that people have a particular belief about where the origins of the word Allah came from, and all of these types of things. That Allah is a moon god, and then Manat, and we've heard it, seen it, and we have rejected it. So
Right,
the,
and
the
that's
truth of the
fine.
matter is, you are not
That's fine.
going to convince us that
No, I'm not. I'm
what
not.
you're saying is true, whether you're trying or not. I'm just saying you're not going. It's not going to happen. You're not going to convince us that what you're saying is true. You should accept that we accept, whether you accept it or not, that we accept that Allah is a transcendent God who um, precedes and predates all of humanity. That's what we accept. Whether or not you believe that and you think that you have evidence to the
Oh,
contrary,
okay.
fine.
Okay,
When you
I
present your
understand.
evidence, you should listen to our counter argument and say, okay, well, I've said my say, they've said their say, and now let's move on because you're not
All
going to
right, we'll move
convince
on.
us.
We move on. But that's what we're talking about here. This is the curse we're talking about here. You don't want to go on to what really is what it is, but you want to lead on your own understanding. And our people are basically destroyed by the lack of knowledge and the
You
lack
want me to lean on
of
your
perspective
understanding, though,
based
brother. That's
knowledge.
the
This
problem.
is
You want me
history.
to
This is in
supplant
history.
my
This is in,
understanding? No, it's not history.
this
You
is not
just
in your book.
told me.
This is
You just
outside of your
told
book
me
that
that
came
Muhammad came
before
with
your
the
book
word
was
Allah.
rewritten.
You just told me that Muhammad came with the word Allah. I just approved that's impossible. His father had the name Allah in his name. His father had two names, Abd, which is one name, and Allah,
That's
Abdullah,
fine.
servant
That's
of
fine.
Allah.
That still doesn't
So
get you to
how
the
so
point that
so how did
Abdullah
Muhammad come with
Muhammad was
Allah?
before
No,
that.
you can't do that. You can't come with a premise. If the premise is defeated, then
It's
you
not
have
a
to
premise.
accept
It's
that.
I can pull up the artifacts of this shit before. Can you pull up anything about Muhammad?
Yeah. Look,
Can you pull anything about
yo,
that?
hey, I
You don't
read the
have
book
any
too. I
pictures
read
of him.
Robert Morris.
You don't have
I
no
read my
vision. You
Robert
don't even know
Morris
who he is.
Moon God Myth book too, and that it's absurd. You say you have artifacts. They have been debunked over and over and over again, and it's just an absurdity. Just on its face, the argument is absurd. You are arguing, he is arguing that Muhammad came with this religion and made up his name Allah,
Muhammad
and
was
people
made
are
by
calling
an
themselves.
organization of men. That's what they came to go and have conquest to take over lands. That's why they did that. So they would
So
have the
what land
will,
did he
so people would
conquest?
fight
So let
for
me ask
Yeah,
you
God.
this:
okay, yeah. Hold
what
on. Can we?
land?
Let me ask a
Muhammad was
question.
a
Can I ask a
prophet for
question?
23 years. Tell me the land he took over.
Number
Now, what's the
three.
name of the land he
Number
took
three. Can I
over?
ask a question? Can I ask a question, please?
Sure.
Because at the time that the prophet came up, there were superpowers in play also. The Romans were out there, the Persians were out there, you know what I'm saying? The Egyptians were out there. You have all these different things. Prophet, they weren't even studying the hold on. They weren't even studying the middle of the desert. Nobody wanted to go into the middle of the desert. There was nothing there. There's no water. There's no oases. There wasn't no Dubai to go visit to. So
Well,
why? So where would this all of a sudden this massive army come from to go you
So
you
we're not
have
gonna mention.
other things in play at this time. I'm sorry.
Brother, are we gonna not mention the River Nile? Are we not gonna say that maybe at that time
what?
they had water on it? They got a Nile. I mean, they still say that there's still water
That's
down there.
Egypt.
They still they got.
That's in
Okay,
Egypt.
that's
That's not
Egypt.
in Saudi
All right,
Arabia.
right. But we know that in that region, that's where a water source is, right? Now, everything that came from these cultures seemed to spread out, and then many little cultures basically derived from these
Oh,
other cultures. Can we agree to that, or is that something totally different? Because if
you
you're
know,
gonna
no,
not agree with that,
what
we'll
we can
say that
agree
the
to is
people that
this.
believe in Islam came from India and moved their way down and started to destroy everything, because that's also in history too. If number five knows what I'm talking about, am I right about that? Number five, do you know what I'm talking about?
You're right.
I'm
Well,
here. I'm here multitasking, brother.
wait,
Okay, but
I really,
that all I'm saying is, guys, I'm not subjecting. I'm not like saying that y'all wrong. I'm just saying that let's put things in context, in order. Let's just say that if it was that way, I know you might not want to admit it, and I'm just saying from my perspective, I feel that those things were plagiarized from other things, because this plagiarization goes on and on and on through time. It seems like
listen, man.
somebody always
Listen,
took it
man.
from somebody else because of empire. So like it was just like, hey, we know that this story works. We
That's
can use
right.
it for these people. And then they started to do this all throughout time, because you can track these stories and track some of this knowledge and information all the way back to where it was in stone. And that's why I
But
feel, go ahead.
You
check
ready
me
to
out,
speak?
brother. Back in the day, they didn't have the same access as we do to having all these copies of different texts and things. To even understand somebody else's text, you would have had to learn their language. You would have had to learn the etymology of their language. Then you would have had to learn their text. So this guy didn't have that much time. Like he said, he only had 23 years to drop the Quran on folks. And by
Right.
then he was already 40 years old. You know what I'm saying? It's not like
Right.
It's not like he had a lifetime to do all these different things and learn all these different languages and then put it all
There's no
together
need
in
to
an easy
defend
package
the
for you
But
to
this is
general
get. You
why
know what I'm saying?
proposition.
this is why I said that they glorified him as a war general, and then they made him a prophet out of that from his fighting and his trial
Well,
and
where do you
doing the
get
things
that
that
from?
he did.
Yeah, that
From
you'd
the
have to
What
come
stories
with
did you
some
that
write?
evidence
What
to that.
historical documents do you use to make that determination?
well, this is what I'm saying. Why would they make a Quran?
He is the one
The
that the
I mean,
Quran
Quran
was
was
you
made because
revealed to.
the
you would have to
Quran
read
was
the
made
Quran to
because it was
actually.
a recitation. The Quran was not written down in the times of the Prophet. It was a recitation. So nobody had wrote it down. It was constantly recited.
Thank you, brother. I'm glad you
All
added
right.
that in there. So we know.
No, but
So basically, the Prophet Muhammad
Now,
didn't have a
now,
writer right there next to him, writing each thing that happened.
if I may, the
Go ahead.
Prophet didn't come to bring something new. Prophet Muhammad came to renew what was already there. If you were to study Islam, this is what you are taught. The Prophet came to bring us back into an understanding of what we should have known from the start.
Tawheed. Yes.
Okay.
That's right.
So when you
All right.
say that he didn't bring anything new, of course he did not. If you ever sit down and read a Quran, you will realize once you start to read the Tafsirs, it will reference you back to things like the Anjil, um, and the Bible and different stuff like that. It will tell you to go and read these books.
Right.
It's
And
still
you would have to
Islam
Abrahamic
read.
is not
it's still Abrahamic though.
Islam is not a religion of confusion or trying to break people down.
It's still patriarchal though.
That's okay.
Okay.
You're right. You're right. Number six. So, like I said before, when you even speak about this language that you're talking about, this older language, you guys can speak the language and understand it like you can talk English. Does anybody understand that language of that nature to recite it and even to even break it down into English? Because that's a
That
fallacy in itself. But you
Yeah.
would have to
no,
speak that language.
Well,
if you kind of look
Uh
if you kind
uh
of look at
uh
what's
uh
going on today, right? You have
uh.
you have Muslims all over the world who don't
Mhm.
speak a lick of
Not this
English
one. Not this one.
who are learning Arabic syllable by syllable. You know what I'm saying? They are learning how to recite the words of the Quran. You have a Chinese person who can recite Surah Al-Fatiha just like a person in Saudi Arabia does, and they don't speak a lick of Arabic. That in itself is a miracle. What other book on the face of this planet do you have millions of people memorizing and they don't even know the language? That's like me telling you, giving you a book in Chinese, say here, memorize it, come back and let me know what you do. Let me know what you
It's
think.
called the Holy Bible. It's called the Holy Bible.
How many people
They,
you know?
the whole world
Be
knows
honest. Be
to
honest.
recite that
Be
in
honest.
English or
You
any
have
other language.
preachers.
in
You have
in
preachers preaching out of the Bible who don't even know the Bible. Come on, brother. Be honest.
in in
No,
all
their
actual
respective
in all
languages have
fairness,
it translated.
in
This is what
all
I was
fairness,
saying about the original
in
language
in
and the translated language for their kind and their people. If
Bro,
if you
I
know that
live I
language,
live next to Creflo Dollar's big ass church. Bro, Creflo
right?
Dollar be making up scriptures. You finna tell me that he know the damn Bible? Come on now.
in
Well, the
all
thing is,
fairness,
brother,
in all fairness, the
go ahead, number
Bible
one.
was not written in English. Which
Yes,
which
it
one is
wasn't written in
which
English.
preacher
You're
which
right.
preacher is speaking Aramaic?
Which preacher is speaking Greek,
None of them,
Koine
Which
Greek,
preacher
for that
is
matter?
speaking in
None of
Hebrew?
that matters though. You know, Jamasi.
Just
none of
told us
them,
that you just
none
told
of
us
them.
that the
Okay, so
Bible was
when
being
you come and
was
say
being memorized.
so when you come at the Quran and ask why people are not speaking Arabic, where all across the world you are taught to respect the Arabic and learn to pray in Arabic and learn to understand what you are saying, because once you if you ever did read all your jewels like you were supposed to, you would learn the whole Quran after a while. Once you fast and you pray and you're doing everything you're supposed to do. But what Christian is actually learning Hebrew or Aramaic or even understanding the grammatical breakdown of how it is written inside the Bible, even though it's been transferred to English?
Or even Koine Greek for that matter.
Right, and you're absolutely correct. When you said Koine Greek, I agree, brother. And this is what I was trying to talk about earlier when it came down to what the language really is. Because when we get kind of we get lost in translation. A lot of this stuff, if you did translate that language, that Quran, it would have less divinity, because you get some of those words you can't translate into no other language but that language. And for you to have that understanding of that word, you would have to know that language through and through, in and out. You would have to know exactly what that says and how it feels and how to use those words. A lot of the people that are translating that version of that language is so old. Some of the stuff does not apply to the language they even speak today. Am I correct on that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
The
Yeah,
translation, yeah.
I just
In the
want to make sure that I'm
translation,
right.
yeah. But there's also, like I said, there's also a respect of that Arabic where you'd have to learn it. You know what I'm saying? Not
Yeah.
even learn. You don't have to learn Arabic per se, but you have to learn enough to learn your
To
religion. You
recite
know
it.
what I'm saying? It's your due
Yeah,
diligence. It's your due diligence to learn your religion.
right, but the
If I
learning of the
may,
religion is only structured by the language, because your language only gives you a certain span of
It's not.
information to understand.
i-
If you
if
don't
I
have,
may,
if your language doesn't have enough lexicon, or it doesn't have enough rhetoric, or something that basically has value to what it's really saying, you don't know. You can never interpret none of that understanding, because
if I
English
may,
language itself is a hindrance. Go ahead.
how many translations of the Quran do you know of?
The only thing I know of is the original Quran that has no
How how
translation,
many
right?
how many
The-
translations of the Quran do you know of? Let's talk about the King Fahd.
right.
All right, the King Fahd translation is the most popular.
Mhm.
All right, the Quran is not like the Bible or the other scriptures that you will find that is translated 15 different ways, 100 different
Right.
ways. The Quran is not like that, and there are things
Okay.
called sheikhs. All right,
Shake.
sheikhs are the scholars, and the
Right.
only one that really write tafsirs in this Quran are scholars.
Mm.
It's not like the brother speak of about like a Creflo Dollar who can go out and come out
Oh,
with
okay.
prosperity, a prosperity ministry. Right?
Okay.
It's not like with a lot of these other things where people can just branch out and do whatever they want to do.
Oh.
You see what I'm saying? So you will not find a new English translation of the Quran, the street version of the Quran. This is not what happens with the Quran. The Quran doesn't have 1,000 different translations, and no, it is not translated just by anybody. So you
So the
cannot
The
hold
most
this
translation.
book.
learned.
You
It's the
cannot
most
hold
learned.
So
this
can
book. You cannot hold this book and define it as you define other books in translation. In the Bible where it says stuff like bow down. Because I had to study Hebrew, I had to study Aramaic, I had to study all these things. In the Bible, where you see a repeating thing such as bow down, is because in that language it doesn't have a good, better, best. So what they did is they
right.
had to repeat it in order to take it to different grades.
Okay, I see what you mean. I see
My
what you mean.
people
And
perish from a
also,
lack
brother,
of knowledge. We
right.
have to study
And
these languages. We have to go
brother, I want
back
to
to
ask.
our essence and figure out who we are and what we are. And the only way you can find God is to study all religions and respect them all the same.
Okay, but brother, can I ask you something? So, does the Nation of Islam, do they have their own Bible? Do they have their own Quran, or did they take it from the same Quran everybody else takes it from?
They take it from the same Quran everybody else takes it from.
Mhm.
Now what happens
Okay,
is
so their
You
interpretation.
have the English plus lessons 1 to 10, you
Mhm.
have the 1 to 40, you have the 1 to 36, you have the actual facts and the solar facts.
Right. So,
All right.
so in that,
And
why?
let me break it down. Let me break it down. Once again, I said a theologian has to study everything, correct? So we have to
Right.
understand when we deal with the Moorish Science Temple, when it says the
Right.
Circle 7 Quran, it is talking about a book that will give you extreme knowledge if you would take the Circle 7 Quran and read the Circle 7 Quran. But it makes it very, very clear. This is not the Quran of Mecca. All right. There's only one true Quran. Only one true Quran. All right. In the Nation of Islam, you will find a Quran, you will find the Bible, and you will find the lessons. All right.
Right.
The 1 to 36. All right. Um,
Mhm.
I came up in the church. I moved into the nation.
Okay.
All right. I've studied Buddhism. I've studied it all because I can only find God once I have studied it all. So any question
Right.
you have about the nation, please shoot.
Okay, because I want to know about because I don't know why. I don't know why, since I be thinking that it's a racial thing, that they don't accept the Nation of Islam into Islam as a full, because I think that, I guess, the Nation of Islam is only made for black folk. But the thing is, I feel that the
No,
Nation of Islam.
it's because it goes up.
Oh, go ahead. I
No,
want
it's
to
because it
go
goes
ahead.
against its like main. It goes against its main teachings at the end of the day. Like if you're telling everyone that the prophet was the guy 1400 years ago, and then you got this guy Elijah Muhammad saying that he is the prophet from this book, that goes against everything that
He
your religion just stood for.
but he doesn't. It's not that is not what is taught in the nation. That is what we are
Yeah,
taught
that's
is
what I'm
taught in the
saying.
nation. Once you step inside the temple, you realize that is not what is being said.
Hmm. I know.
Once
I
you
know
have
that
you have
that
to
is
read
said.
books, you have to read books like Our Savior Has Arrived. You have to read
Right.
these books. Our Savior Has Arrived.
I, I,
How to
I
eat to
read that
live.
book.
How to eat to live 1 and 2. You have to read the
Right.
books. You have no knowledge of it if you've never been amongst it. I can't if I've never ever been in Juma, I can't tell you what goes on in Juma.
Right.
You feel me?
And that's the only reason why I know a little reference of it, because Malachi Z. York broke that down, really down packed. But Malachi Z. York was taught under the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So like that's what I'm seeing, that when it comes to us in the black community, we had scholars that broke that down so many ways and branched off and even took them off in other ways, where we can even see the past history through the black community of its inception with these religions. It's like the same thing that happened hundreds of years ago in a condensed, concentrated form. You took it from one end, you had the Islam, right? And from Islam, from the Nation of Islam, you got what the Hebrew Israelites with Yahweh ben Yahweh. We know from what's that guy's name? The Najah Muhammad was around a noble Jew Ali, and they were part of the same organization. And when it
Don't
comes down
forget
to
Wallace
the
Farad.
structure,
Do not
the
forget
structure
Wallace
is
Farad.
a lot of Shriners going and
Wallace
making
fraud
things
started
and
taking them.
branching off and using this as some type of controlling power. I don't, is this how it was ran when the original Islam? Was it a group of men that chose to make a decision to go and basically conquest and take things over so everybody have one understanding? Because that's what Elijah Muhammad did for the black community.
I
That's what
ask you
Honorable Elijah
again, when you make these statements, I ask again, who can establish these things that have having happened? Where was this? I'm a student of history. I'm certainly a student of Islamic history. So where was this? All of this conquest that I hear about a lot. I hear a lot about this conquest of this Islamic conquest. And I get
Okay,
the
I'll tell
fact
you
that
where it
there's some
comes from.
kind of rumor, but where is it at historically? Let's
Okay,
talk about
it all
this
started.
conquest.
It all started at India. See, these people from India had this class system that they made up. They said that, the darkest is I know the dark is the poor and the light is the rich, or a certain level, but in the dark and in the light there's higher levels and lower levels, right? So this understanding came from
The British
certain
brought
parts of India and moved from India, or the Endless Valley. I think it's the Endless Valley civilization. I could be wrong, but they came down and they started to destroy a lot of the archetypes that was before its new type of regime that they're running. So they will go everywhere in these respective lands and destroy this old information. And basically, there's a lot of studies saying that when it even comes with the Venus statues and even the worship of what is her name? What is the guy Yahweh's wife's name? Something. It starts with an S. But basically, her archetype was destroyed. They broke down all her statues. They cut all that stuff down, as well as they did in Egypt. It seems all this stuff was going down at one time. Everybody was going and destroying this shit all through time. It never stopped. They started to knock shit over. If they found it, they would destroy it. Why would they do that? What was that for? This is all through history. You can go and look this up. They got this all through history. They went down from the top of the world to the bottom of the world, destroying all the old deities. Why were they spending all this time? Because I feel that there was a world government before this patriarchal type of way of living. There was some type of
You said a lot of things, but you said nothing factual, right? Or not
oh,
establishing any facts.
factual. Okay, go
So
ahead. Elaborate for me.
when, and how? Who were the people? What time? What year? What did it happen? What countries that were conquered? Let's talk about that. Not some general. Somebody came from India and generally took down this statue and took down that statue. Where did they take them down from? Who were these people? Who were they led by? Let's talk.
He
Let's just get into the weeds.
he is basically talking about every dominating factor that has ever ruled over any empire.
Okay, come on, man.
When
Come on.
Alexander the Great realized that he couldn't take all the knowledge out of Egypt, they destroyed the noses off of the Sphinx. He's
Okay.
talking
So
about
so
any civilization that has ever existed. Whoever is in power will destroy what was there before in order to control you. Are you familiar with the name Claude Fisher?
wait a minute. Let's before we get to
Brother,
crawfish,
are you
and no, I'm
familiar
not
with the
familiar with that
name
name. But
Claude
before,
Fisher? Yes or no?
no,
It's a
No,
yes or
I
no
just told
answer.
you no.
no.
I
Okay.
just told you no.
Claude
I said
Fisher,
no. I am not
Claude
familiar with
Fisher,
Claude Fisher. But no. Before
Claude
we get to
Fisher.
Claude Fisher, brother,
No, let
how
me.
about we
You
get to the
asked the question.
statement that the brother
I'm
made?
answering your question, brother. If you please let me finish.
You know you're not.
Yes, I am, because the question that you are imposing to him, I'm going to answer for you. What he is talking about is every civilization that ever existed. Claude Fisher said racism is a ladder made by design. The first way that you control a man is that you take away his past and the knowledge of who he is. So by destroying these statues, by destroying what was there before, destroying the past, you no longer know the truth. So the only truth that you know is the
Okay,
one that he teaches you.
okay.
Can you agree?
So
That's
are
what
we
they
going to get
did
back
to
to
us when they
this?
brought us to
Are we going
America.
to get back to this massive amount of Islamic conquest that he was speaking about? Are we going to get back to that,
There
or are we
was
just going to
no
start talking
conquest.
about conquest in general? Because
There,
what is it?
there was
I
no
want to know about this massive amount of
conquest.
Islamic conquest that happened.
If
That's
you
what I want to
study
know
What
about.
he
Islamic
is
history,
talking
there was no
about,
conquest. There's diffusion that goes throughout all history, and little by little, Europe was basically taken over by the Moors. They never took over by force. All of these countries that we call European countries, they're not. They're not European countries. They were initially Moorish territory. The Ottoman
They
Empire did spread out,
out of it.
but they weren't even called
yes,
Moors. We didn't establish Moorish law and science until like the 1940s or around 1947. There was no
Right.
nation, there was no
Berbers.
Morocco or any of that. It was
They
just
were different.
a lot of Arab Muslims that came out of the East, just like the man said, and even prior to that, they got their knowledge from the tribes of Israel, and prior to that, the Hindu influence did come from India and those areas. Because if you
Thank
look
you,
up
brother.
the root words of all these gods, including even our ancestors like Abraham, you got Abraham, Abraham. You say it in your very first line in your Quran. You say Bismillah Arak Arahim. They're referring to the Brahmins of
No,
India, Brahmin,
no.
and
It
that
says
goes throughout
Bismillahir
all the other
Rahmanir
languages.
Rahim.
And
Okay. No, it
they
doesn't.
still go through all the languages, whether you want to say it in Arabic, which is not Arabic, because Syriac is
That's
the
true.
older Arabic,
That's
and
true.
then
That's true.
you
There's no
see that
question about that.
the names continue to translate through. So it was not a conquest; it was just a diffusion of cultures as people spread around the world. And because the Moors, or the ones you call the Ottomans, were good at culture and civilization, they civilized Europe, and then Queen Isabel joined up with King Ferdinand, and they started the whole war called the Crusades, and they
Okay.
started to go with Christianity. But even Christianity got its roots from Judaism, okay, or how how you call how do I say this? The original Hebrew Israelites are the children
Swear.
of Israel. Those are the people that they made the religion Judaism out of. The Europeans just took it, they studied them, and they made a religion out of it. The whites
Sure.
claimed it for themselves, but they were just
Sure.
studying those that came before them. The same way the Europeans also studied
Essentially.
the Egyptians. They took everything that they could, they mixed it all together, and called it their own, and then conquered the same people with their own knowledge.
Sure.
So
Facts.
this is not a thing about them conquering. It was just that once they civilized them or they gave them that information, they used it against them and they joined up.
Uh, okay.
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 So
Now,
So
I
it
what
was
want
I
to
have
ask the
heard.
brother.
intellectual
I
power.
want to ask the brother something because he was talking all about hadiths and surahs and all of this. Tell me, was Muhammad literate? And can you find any actual copy of a so-called original Quran? Because if you study history, Muhammad was illiterate.
We
Yes, it was all verbal and it was passed down. The original Quran was written on skins and paper and whatever they could find on bone, and that was lost because his in-laws wanted to turn into a religion. They started killing his family. They chased them out and then the in-laws took over and started creating Sunnah or the Sunni Muslims, and even they didn't gain full control because the ones that came out of that followed them started trying to make their own Quran and translations, just like Christianity and the Council of Nicaea, in order to control people. They created it.
Right.
Now the question really should be like you were posing: who's really behind all this? If you
Right.
study history, those who've been in power and the same ones that you gave the knowledge to took it and twisted around, called it hermetic sciences and other things like that, end up becoming Masons, and they're the ones who still control and make these world religions. Everything from Judaism to
Yeah.
Christianity to Islam.
Well,
Why do you
we
think?
all
Why do
sound
you?
super knowledgeable when we engage in diatribe. You know, it makes us sound super knowledgeable because there's no rebuttal to anything we say. We just simply ask a question, and rather than allowing anyone to answer the question, we provide our own explanation for the
No,
question and the answer.
I asked the
Uh,
question. I asked the question. Where can you find an original Quran?
so the Quran
What is
wasn't
first?
written.
First, what is an original Quran?
Right.
Exactly.
That the notion of an original Quran is a misnomer in and of itself. The Quran is a recitation. It's not a book. It's not a book in the classical sense in that it has pages and it is written in that way. A Quran is a recitation. Some people have the whole of the Quran in their memory, and they don't have it written down anywhere. They have the whole of the Quran in their memory. There were many people in the lifetime of the Prophet ﷺ who had the whole of the Quran in their memory, and they too
Yes.
never wrote it. So the reason
Right.
for the writing of the Quran was because there were different languages in the Arab center. There were different dialects of speech. So the Quran was revealed in these seven different modes. So there were different people were changing or giving different interpretations to the meanings based on the words that were closest to their tribe and their tribal understanding. And therefore, there needed to be a centralized understanding of the Quran. So they use the Qurayshi language or the language that the last revelation that was sent to the Prophet Muhammad SAW, that we call that the Uthmani script, and that does exist. But we call that the Uthmani script. And what happened was that Uthman ordered that all of the Quran be gathered and that seven scholars would confirm. Seven scholars who had memorized the whole of the Quran would come together and they would decide if a verse was or is not an actual verse. They had to come to agreement on that. So when they all came to agreement on what was and was not there, that was what they placed in the Quran that we have with us today. Um, so the notion of an original Quran as if it was a writing that existed in the lifetime of the Prophet Muhammad SAW is not true. There was no Quran as we understand it today, even written in his lifetime. So I don't understand what you mean by original Quran. Perhaps you can enlighten me on that, and maybe I can
Well,
elaborate further.
the brother was saying it was going back, and there was always a like there was. He made it sound as if there's an original Quran. So what I'm hearing from you is very
No,
much
I
the
said
same.
there
The
is
same.
not many translations of the Quran. You will not find 1,000 translations of the Quran. That is not permitted. You just can't
Okay,
say I'm
but
going to write me a
That's not
Quran.
Semitic.
the
That's
brother
not
just
Semitic.
said that the actual Quran that we have today was a many a translation of different dialects and various
It was
forms of
just seven. It
Arabic.
was
That's
just
not what I
seven.
said. That
Example,
is not what I said. That is not what I
I
said.
didn't catch the count. I didn't catch the count. But you're saying it sounds to me just like the Council of Nicaea. They brought all these books together and then decided what would be put in and what would be put out. So there is
No,
no
No,
that's not
real
what I said
Quran.
either.
The
That
same
can
way it
I
not
would
what
can I
be
anybody
with the
can I
said.
say
gospel.
something? No, at the
There's
end of the
no
day,
pure.
like you would have, you also have the Muslims that were coming up around the time of the Prophet that were also around this time. So you have a, after they collected the Quran, it had to literally go with what the people already knew in, as far as like the people the early Muslims. So you would, as much as the Arabs like to fight, you have not seen a skirmish about, oh, there was too many books in the Quran, this one, or this book was missing from the Quran.
Right,
There's no
right,
disagreements like that.
Wait a minute, wait a minute,
right.
wait a minute, wait a minute. There is, because somebody, a Muslim, told me that I think okay, there's Sufis and then there's Shiites. The Shiites, it was about a story about a man that they were going to make the Quran, and he was trying to give it to him, but he said it wrong. And then basically they had to go and revise it because people weren't agreeing what it was said, because maybe it was an well, you said it was an oral tradition. So it was oral first, and somebody misconstrued that, because, like number 11 said, that after he said that he put the Quran down, he didn't want other people to go and corrupt it by using it for a tool to control other people. But they killed his family off, and they made sure that this was done, and that's why these things were done in the future. But what I'm saying is, and maybe to address some of the stuff that's going on in the comments, Yogi is saying that basically Greek or Hebrew is actually uh uh is actually no. What did he say? He said Aramaic and Arabic is actually Greek. And if you speak those words, if you speak the words, it translates into German when they translated all this stuff into German.
Oh my
Basically,
God.
all these. He said
Man,
that the
come
Greek language is it. I don't know. He said the Greek language is created. I mean, the Greeks created the Aramaic and the Arabic languages for the fact of explaining most of this stuff in the Old Testament. So, like, basically,
nah.
they made those
So
those. I don't know.
Wow.
All I
I
know
don't
is
know
that
Wow.
they're
about
still
all of
ruled by
that.
European nations. I know that.
As far as the Sunni and
What y'all got to
The
Shia,
say about
Greeks
that?
did it.
the Sunnis and Shia
The
aren't
Greeks, they said that.
don't
Listen, I mean,
disagree
that's not even
about what the
historically
Quran is.
possible.
It is.
He said the Greeks
I'm
spoke
sorry.
Aramaic, then they created Hebrew, no, and Arabic. That's what he said. So he basically said they spoke
So
Aramaic. Greeks spoke
what were
Aramaic.
the
That was their
Arabic
language.
people? So what were the Arabic people who were in that time speaking? Like what they were speaking Greek?
No.
That
That
see,
don't
this
make
is
no
the
sense,
thing.
bro. That don't make
But
no
the thing
sense.
is, the Aramaic people was made by the Greeks. This is what he's saying. The whole
Okay.
But
Aramaic
that
thing.
People can say
No.
This
everything, right? Now, we
No.
put
craziness.
some
This ain't
facts on the
saying
table.
No,
this.
but
Hey,
What are you
no, that
put
talking
some
makes
about?
truth
sense.
Are
on
you
the
It's
talking
table.
it's
about a
it
people?
makes a
Aramaic
lot
Are you
of
talking
predates.
about
sense.
a people,
It's
or are you
right. I
talking
could
about
walk
their
with that.
language?
No.
Are you
the
talking
I
about
Greeks
a
can agree
made
with
people?
the
what you're saying.
Aramaic
Are you talking
people?
about
That's
their
what you said?
language?
Are you
Yeah.
He's probably saying the
What is
translation
the
because just like
It's the
there's old
Aramaic
Hebrew,
people.
there's new Hebrew, there's old Arabic and
No,
there's new
no,
Arabic. The
listen.
old Arabic is Syriac, and then there's Arabic. Aramaic is old Hebrew. New
No,
Hebrew or
listen.
Come up,
flaming
This is what
come
y'all.
Hebrew
up,
is the
This is
one with
what
the
Yogi.
y'all got.
vowels.
Okay, let me.
Yogi, come up. It's open.
Hey, look, the missing piece is this: is that learned the Greeks learned from the Egyptians. That's the missing link that y'all got to remember.
Ah,
Bro,
okay.
yeah. Alexander the
So the
Great.
Hebrews. No, this ain't got shit to do with Alexander the Great.
That's what Alexander the Great
What's
conquered
all the
Egypt.
extra?
And when he
What's
went
all the
into
extra
Egypt,
noise on the
he
phone?
stole the knowledge from Egypt. That's where he began to learn from Egypt. Alexander the Great has a lot to do with it.
No,
And you
well,
said you
I'm
said all
talking
this
about
was going
before
on at the
Alexander
same
the Great.
time.
I'm
I don't
talking
think
about
it was.
before Alexander the Great, though. Going back to
Alexander
the
the Great
great
is the one who went into
so-called
is the
Greek
Greek that went into
philosophers.
Egypt.
So wait a minute. You know what it is? I think that the timeline fucked us up. I think that since we're looking at timelines, that's messing us up on what really happened, because maybe the Greeks, when they put the time back, there's a lot of weird things that's going on with this
I'm
information.
not talking about when Alexander the Great went to try to take over Egypt like that.
Okay,
I'm
then.
talking about when they went there humbly to sit down and learn. When the
He's talking
philosophers,
Socrates,
about
the
relative.
Aristotle, all of
so-called
those people.
God damn, yes, the so-called Greek
Oh,
philosophers. That went
Greek
and
philosophers.
educated the rest of the world, which a lot of us talk today. This Greek stuff that we talking about, we melanated, speaking Greek language. That Greek
Well, weren't,
education that we got today.
weren't the Greeks
Am I
melanated
talking?
first?
Am I talking too fast? I said the word
Oh,
melanated that educated people like to refer to themselves
right,
as. That's a
right.
Greek word,
Oh, yeah,
Greek-based
it is.
word. It's an
Yeah,
English word that derived from Greek language. Mela
all of
is
it
Greek.
does. Doesn't it?
Not
All
Mela.
the
all of
English
it. Not,
language.
Say it
Okay,
together now. Mela.
German,
Mela.
Mela.
Melano.